This is a story about a yellow taxi that picked up an unsuspecting passenger in New York City at precisely 12:37 a.m. The man slid into the seat, dropped his phone on the floor, and turned to the driver. "Take me to JFK," he said, and the driver hit the gas. The fare was $58. The customer paid with a $100 bill and then fell asleep. When he woke up again, he realized he'd lost his wallet, which had his ID, credit cards, and cash in it. But the driver had also vanished. He was alone in the car, with no way to get in touch with the driver or anyone else. The doors were locked, and there was no cell service. He looked down at the phone lying on the floor, where he detossed it when he got into the cab. It was dead. Maybe it had been jostled out of its case, he thought. And maybe, if he could find that case, he would find the phone still inside it. So he started looking around. But instead of finding his phone, he found something even more perplexing. There were two phones in the case, and neither of them was his. One of them was unlocked and showed a missed call from someone named Nadia, along with several voicemails from someone named Jesse, saying things like, "Hey man, I'm outside the apartment. Call me when you get this." And "Dude, I've been calling your phone for the past hour. Where are you? Call me." There were also a couple of photos of a smiling young man with a scruffy beard and an ID on the phone that identified him as David. Not only did none of this make any sense to the passenger, but he knew that none of those things belonged to him. Feeling increasingly panicked, he tried the door handle again, and this time it opened. He slipped out of the taxi and onto the street, hailed another cab, and headed to the nearest Starbucks so he could use their phone. When he got there, he explained his situation to the barista, who let him use the phone. He called the police and told them everything that had happened, except he couldn't remember exactly where he'd gotten into the other taxi, just that it had happened on 7th Avenue between 49th and 50th. The officer he spoke to said it sounded like a strange story, but he should have lost his wallet when he was paying the fare, not afterward. She suggested he check his credit card statements for the charge and gave him the number for the taxi and limousine commission. He thanked her, dialed the TLC, and waited on hold for a half hour while sipping his now cold coffee. When he finally got through, he explained what had happened and asked if they could track the taxi. They asked him for the medallion number, which was painted on the front and back of the taxi, but he didn't see a medallion anywhere. All he could find was the license plate number. The operator said that wouldn't help because there were thousands of cars with that same license plate number. By now, it was almost 3 a.m., and the passenger had an early flight to catch. He asked the operator if there was anything else he could do, but she said there wasn't. She suggested he head to the airport and file a lost and found report when he got there, and so that's what he did. After waiting in line at JFK for 45 minutes, he filled out a form describing the missing wallet and the mysterious taxi ride. The agent he spoke to said it was highly unlikely he would ever see his wallet again, but if they did happen to find it, they would contact him at the number he used to pay the fare. He ended up making his flight without any of his credit cards or ID and arrived at his destination, feeling dejected and out of state. For the next few days, the passenger checked his credit card statements every day, hoping for an update. But there was nothing. Then, just as he was about to give up hope, his phone rang. On the other end of the line was a woman from the TLC. "Mr. Passenger," she said, "we found your wallet." He couldn't believe it. He asked her how they managed to track it down, and she said all he had to do was take a closer look at the case. When he went to grab the case, he noticed a tiny TLC sticker on the corner of it. He pulled out his phone and looked at the photo he'd taken of the case inside the taxi. Sure enough, the sticker was barely visible in the photo, but it was definitely there. When he arrived to pick up his wallet, the taxi and limousine commission had even found the driver. It turned out he'd picked up the passenger at precisely 12:37 a.m. on June, driven him to the airport, and parked for the night. They found the passenger's wallet behind the driver's seat and his phone in the case, which was still plugged into the charger in the center console. The driver was given a hefty fine for failing to turn in the phone and wallet sooner, and the passenger got to keep the $50 in cash that was left over after the fine was paid. As for the 2 phones that had been in the case, the passenger never got an answer as to whose they were, though he liked to imagine that Jesse and Nadia had finally gotten their guy.